Yes, I'm back. Happy New Year belatedly to everybody. Today we're just going to go through a couple of titles that came out in January that we might have missed, or you might have missed. I definitely didn't, because I'm going to talk to you about them. Now, first up, we have a book called Repentance by Alison Gibbs. So this is an Australian writer, comes to us from Scribe. This was an absolutely intriguing story. I must admit, love that. I'm going to check in with my notes because I'll get my dates. I've got so much historical stuff going on in these that I need to get my dates right. Set in the 1970s, and we're up on the Great Dividing Range with a small town community which has probably survived partly on logging, and the hippie communities, which is a bit sort of, transient or beginning to settle in there. And of course, there's going to be this big clash. What I particularly liked about this was there's nothing trite about her writing. You really get some great characters in there, and you actually, while you're reading the viewpoints of different characters, you actually get a feel for the really serious issues that are still, fundamental to the way we look at our logging industry today. So, but she writes so well. Her characters are smashing, and the way she writes about nature is particularly beautiful. I do highly recommend it. It's got a lovely Australian feel, and we need to keep those books in our minds very much. Now, so highly recommended. This one, Girl A by Abigail Dean. So it's shall we say, it's a sort of, actually I should put that one there, shouldn't I? A crime thrillery one, based on, it's one of these ones where I just can't stop turning pages. I'm kind of fascinated, very fascinated. We start with Lexi, who was Alexandra, or still is, but that was her childhood name, one of 7, who spent many years being not really, tortured, yes, I suppose, but abused. So yes, it is a story about neglect and parental abuse. So we have a kind of a nutcase, religious nutcase dad. We have a mum who things just kind of got out of hand, and it's how you escape, and how when you look back at that, the mother has just died at the opening of this, died in prison, and how you look back and come to terms with, or not, what happened to you as a child. Yes, it's got that that kind of that feel. I mean, I suppose if you're looking at this book and say, oh my God, I don't want to read that, but look, her writing is so good that this book just doesn't topple over into melodrama. It's very enthralling, and I very much enjoyed it. So I do recommend it if that's the sort of read you think you'd be interested in. Another one. Now we have another. It seems to be a bit of a theme. This is, again, African American writing, and there is so much of it, and so much of it is absolutely terrific. This one is set in Barbados. It's called How the One-Armed Sister Keeps a House by Cherry Jones. So she is Caribbean, she is a lawyer, but she says of herself she is first and foremost a writer. Now she's writing about a small town called Paradise in Barbados, and there are 3 generations of women, and it is about intergenerational trauma, but it's also about the body and what is done to the body, and how it bears the brunt of your life experiences. And none of these experiences is particularly joyous, but there are moments of great joy. There's a moment of absolute, I suppose, sacrifice, which is redemptive. There's an amazing continuing sort of love thread in this book. Yeah, it's got a certain amount of brutality, but that is the reality of some people's worlds. I'm not going to go too moral on you, but the writing is an award winner. If you liked Evaristo's Girl, Woman, Other, that might be your cup of tea. Again, this is from Hachette. This is another Hachette book. This one, now I'll be totally honest with you, The Prophets by Robert Jones Jr. I have really only just picked this one up. It's super hyped. That means there's a lot of buzz out there on this one. Look, I think it's a very unusual start, because you start with these ancestors. It's about slavery. It's American. It's about dead end lives, dead end places. It's about religious fervor. It's about the way slaves were treated. So obviously it's got a huge body of history informing this, and of sort of cultural awareness. But golly, we have 2 main characters, who are Isaiah and Samuel and their lovers, which is already quite you sort of wonder how they'd ever have managed that. So that very much intrigued me, but I think what I particularly like in this is that Jones writes his women, and the women, they sort of, I suppose my way, they wink out at you from the pages because they're actually superbly protective of these men. I haven't got that far into it, so I don't know actually what happens, but I just know that, golly, again, writing that would knock the socks off you. So yes, it's kind of in that bleaky thing, but you know, it's not that it's worthy writing, it's just that it's absolutely blinking terrific writing. To non-fiction, I know I don't do a lot of non-fiction. If you haven't seen these ones, I'm bringing them to your attention because they really are very, very much worth having a look at. This one is Fire, Flood, Plague, so that's edited by Sylvia Cunningman. It is Australian author's response to what we went through in 2020. Now, we all have our own ideas of what we went through in 2020. We mightn't all have gone through exactly the same thing, but wouldn't it be interesting, and isn't it interesting to see what our writers, who are some of our finest minds, how they would make us look back at it from other people's perspective, and sort of wake up to what the world saw, what the world felt, what we as Australians felt, all the different things, and how that should and must inform the next bit. The writing is gorgeous. You've got a lineup of, I mean, you have an absolutely tremendous lineup. You've got Griffith, Flannery, Cunningham, Giggs, you've got Jess Hill, Kip Scott, Omar Saka. They're just, it is superbly well put together, great essays. Loved it. I am an essay reader. I do like essay forms, so there you go. And another one, of course, you've probably seen this one, that's been out for a little while. If you haven't, it's another Australian essay collection, and this one is edited by Kaminsky and McConneely, and it is comes from us from Penguin Random House. There's some glorious writing. Each writer has taken their favourite Australian animal, or an animal that interests them. So you've got, you know, top class again, Tony Burt, Sean Tan, Bruce Pascoe, Geraldine Brooks, the list goes on. And some of them are quite short, quite pithy. It's not sort of bleak, it's like, these are the animals. But one of the writers, Kate Kennedy, wrote a sentence that absolutely stopped me in my tracks. It was about seeing a platypus and actually seeing not the platypus in the zoo that goes up and down, but a real one in the wild, and how much she treasured that moment and wanted it in a way. So she talked about us as humans with what she says, full of pieties and full of demands about our relationship to other animals and our own relationship to ourselves as being 98% chimp. She really does make you think about how we're at once destructive and at once in love with and in awe of the animal world. So go figure. Excellent reading. And yeah, keep those in mind if, you know, what other people think is informs how we think, and they're great thinkers. Now, a lot of you have come in and said, oh, could I have something less bleak? I hear you. I have to do this myself every now and then, in between essays. First one up, I haven't really talked to you about this one. Oh my goodness, it's an absolute giggle. So it's Fortune Favours the Dead by Stephen Spotswood. It's set in 1946 in New York, and we have two female characters who are kind of our leads, detectives, so it's very much a whodunit. Very, very, very sort of cozy crime, but got lots of sort of gritty, quirky moments in it. Our main character is kind of a tough broad, come from sort of nowhere, low socioeconomic background. She's cut through circuses, so she has a very, very special skill set. And you know, fate makes her come in contact with Lillian. Oh, what's her? Oh, God, you see, this is the problem with my COVID brain. With Lillian Pentecost, who is a Miss Marple but caustic. And she's not really Miss Marple, but she's kind of that older detective who's got her own relationship with the police force. We have a Lockton story, an heiress and, well, an heir to a big fortune, and a medium, and lots of strangenesses going on there. But it's really sort of a romp, smart writing, a great American feel, and I thought that was thoroughly enjoyable. Whiled away a couple of hours with no stress, so that's an absolute beaut. A second one there, this is another nice one from Penguin, which is The funny thing about Norman Foreman, and it's by Juliet Anderson. Now this is an absolute little gem, and I've had a lot of great feedback from customers. Very warm-hearted. It is a coming-of-age story because our young protagonist Norman had a best friend, Jax, and they were meant to be doing a comedy show together, and Jax unexpectedly dies when he's about 12 or 13. Now the plan was at about 15 to go to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, so it's UK set. And Norman's mum, Sadie, just is so self-deprecating. She really doesn't think she's the world's greatest mum. And part of that is because she doesn't remember or can't identify which of 4 possible candidates was Norman's dad. It's very, very, very quirky. It's very feel-good. They do go to the Fringe Festival, and Norman is going to kind of come to terms with this great loss in his life of his best friend, but also it's kind of a hunt for dad. Highly recommended if you want to sort of, you know, relax and not worry too much about things. Another Buse, which I haven't sort of talked up to you much, is this one by Ellie Williams, which is the Liar's Dictionary. Now, a lot of you will have read the Dictionary of Lost Words. This is another one. It's really very, very gorgeous. If you're a wordy person, this is the book for you. It's got an absolutely hilarious set of 2 timelines and a very hilarious character back in 1899 who's compiling words for a dictionary. And in that dictionary he puts in what they called mouth weasels, which were false, completely fabricated definitions of words or completely fabricated words, in order to sort of identify that dictionary could be, you know, for copyright reasons, that you could identify it as your own dictionary or your own definition. He's called Winsworth, Winsworth, which kind of, you know, you already know your author's having a lot of fun. And in the modern day we have an intern who's working at this same dictionary, which has sort of become smaller and smaller and smaller. It's still unfinished, and she's coming across these words, and in the beginning she's not so invested in the words. She kind of thought, can't wait for this to be over. But between funny phone calls telling her there's going to be sorry, I should have put that there for a while, telling her that there's going to be a bomb going off and this weird prank, not a prank caller, but there's a lot of fun going on in it. I think it's all about how we try to make sense of the world we're living in, and we try to make sense of the world through words. So smart, very smart writing, and I think super enjoyable. The last one up, you've seen this before, and it was in the shop as a huge hardback, and I think maybe people get very daunted by very huge hardbacks. I certainly do, but not this one. This, the Nino, I have to pronounce his name correctly, Haratishvili, The Eighth Life for Rilke, is, boy, it's a humdinger. All right, so think Boris Pasternak's Dr. Zhivago meets Tolstoy, any Tolstoy, meets Chocolat by Joanne Harris. You've got that kind of feel. It's a bit nutty, but you've got this sweeping narrative set in Georgia. So we're in the Russian Empire, and we're back then, when, you know, 20th century, early 20th century, when we have, basically, we have generations of, again, it's kind of women-centric, but generations of this same family, and how they evolve through the changing political scene, but also through their romances and their search for identity, who they are. It's full of handsome officers, waltzes, ugly sisters, pretty sisters, ballerinas, circuses, a love story. There's a lot of courage, there's romantic excess, there are journeys, and of course, there's hot chocolate. Can't do without that. There you go. So in among that lot, there is definitely something for you, and it would be very nice if you'd like to come in and purchase said item. That's it for me. I look forward to seeing you soon, and I'll have more books for you in the next time I get around to doing this. Let's say in a moment. See you soon. Bye.